I think the main reason that political media has become so incredibly partisan is just incentives. I am an incentives thinker. And so I think that the incentive structure has changed, where if you go back to 1970, pre-1970, you had national news, but it was like 1 or 2 hours, and it was very, very broad because there were 3 channels, so none of them could risk alienating anybody. So they had to make it fairly tepid, fairly down the middle. Yes, there were power brokers, and there were gatekeepers, and they were no doubt comporting it around their narrative. I don't doubt any of that. But it couldn't really become partisan because they couldn't risk losing people. Most of the news, though, was fairly local. And one of the benefits of local news is it's really mundane. And so when you're reading the Daily Oklahoman in 1960, yes, there will be the thing about escalations with Russia, but there'll also be questions about how this state should deal with water rights on a county by county basis. And it doesn't really get partisan. At some point, I think probably with the advent of cable television news, we moved into national media. And what plays at the national level is partisan things, because we can have wedge issues. They're very electrifying. We can't just talk about county issues because we don't care about that if we're in a different part of the country. Is my analysis at all correct? And if so, what could we do to make the media ecosystem better? What would be the tangible solutions we could do that would restore trust in legacy media?
Easily. In the late 1990s, when we decided to be one of 2 countries in the world that allowed pharma to advertise directly to consumer, I, being the capitalist that I am, was saying, yes, of course, it's just capitalism. Guess what? It totally backfired. Do you want to venture a guess as to what level of sponsorship in mainstream media, the big outlets, of what pharma is in their sponsorship budget, how much of it is? Over 70%. Did you know that?
Really? No, I didn't.
70%. So now, okay, I'm going to get my tinfoil hat out of my drive. You're going to think, and let me tie this together before you dub me as a conspiracy theorist. So all you have to do is whiteboard where the money is going from. Pharma goes to television stations. Pharma goes to the WF. Pharma picks out candidates within government. It is not unreasonable to start connecting. I'm not saying it's true, but to start connecting these dots and believe in the existence of a deep state. It's literally right there in wire transfers as it goes back and forth. And I want to underscore the point again. I am not saying that I believe there's this deep state cabal that's controlling everything. I'm saying that to point a finger at someone who's trying to make that argument and say that they're this radical fringe lunatic conspiracy theorist, that is unreasonable, because it is a perfect discussion to have about incentives. You show me the money, I'll show you the outcome. That's a Charlie Munger statement, Warren Buffett's right-hand man. So to me, it's a very, very interesting thing. And you rolled your eyes a little. I'm curious to think your thoughts on it.
Yeah, well, so my 2 thoughts are, one, noting the incentive. So I worked in legacy media for like 4 or 5 years. I worked for a large cable television large cable television network that had a financial division. And I can just say from personal experience, in my experience, we were very worried about eyeballs. We were very worried about ratings. We never considered what sponsors were going to say. At no point on my show did we ever have a conversation about.
How long ago was that, Andrew?
This was from 2012 to 2017.
I hope you're right, but it did not feel that way when I was there. Yeah.
I mean, like, I was also just a writer on the show, so like maybe there were backroom conversations, but in my experience, we were terrified of eyeballs, and that to me is the thing that media deals with all the time. Is we could not go on national television at prime time and go, hey everybody, nothing happened today. Spend time with your families. Check in tomorrow. We're going to take a mulligan. No, we had to go, wow, Miley Cyrus rode a wrecking ball naked. People are freaking out on Twitter. This is real. This is don't go away. So we always had to pretend that like really important stuff was happening, even if it wasn't. But we never had. I never remember there being any type of coddling for the sponsor. That just wasn't my experience. Yours, it sounds like was very different. The thing I'll say of the deep state is I might go with you on that, but we have to define what we mean by deep state. On my show, The Political Orphanage, I had on Michael Glennon last year. Michael Glennon wrote a book on the national security apparatus. He would not call it the deep state. He made a very compelling argument, however, that in the same way that if we were to go back to ancient Rome and talk to a Roman in the time of Augustus, they would tell you that they have a republic, that Augustus is the head of the Senate, and the Senate has been what's empowered him. And it was really the sort of symbolic things. He made the argument of, we've got the judicial, the legislative, the executive. Those are the official ones, but there is a kind of ambiguous fourth branch of national security apparatus. He made a very compelling case. So if we're talking about like the civil service basically constitutes a fourth branch of government, or the national security basically constitutes a fourth branch. I'm there for that. If we mean that there's like a conspiracy of people in the back that are like, shot Kennedy, stuff like that, then we're getting into conspiracy territory, and we might have to smooth out the details more on what we mean by it.
It's funny that you come up with the Kennedy assassination as the conspiracy theorist, the point they're trying to make, considering that the intelligence community actually made up that expression, conspiracy theorist, to challenge anyone who was questioning the JFK assassination. But I'll pose a question to you before, and you mentioned, you didn't mention the intelligence community one bit. But here's my question. Let's say the three of us are the head of intelligence, whether it be CIA, FBI in the United States of America. All of a sudden, it's however many years ago, 20 years ago, and Google comes out. So Google, the only thing that's ever lacked from a government trying to control its citizenry is the ability to surveil, the ability to collect data, right? So let's say that Google comes out and all of a sudden, wow, shit, they're great at collecting data on people. Wouldn't we be completely derelict to not try to get our tentacles into that big tech that's collecting data on people? I think if you were my assistant, and I'd probably be your assistant, you're a smart guy, but if you were my assistant and you said that's a bad idea, you'd be fired immediately for someone who would. I mean, Google's literally collecting the data. So I said this, I was at a dinner party with friends about a year ago, and they're in the tech field. And I just casually mentioned that, of course the CIA is involved with Google. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what are you talking about? How could they not be? I mean, we're literally talking about TikTok, and we're going to be talking about this show. I saw it on the rundown. TikTok collecting our data in China, and our intelligence community saying, well, that's not fair. Yeah, no, because they want to collect it themselves.
Well, I don't think you even need to hypothesize, Jim. I mean, weren't the Twitter files fairly indicative of that, where it turns out that there was a cozy relationship, it's documented, we have it, between national security apparatus and Facebook, where they'd come in and go, look, we really want you to not, no vaccine skepticism. Be sure to, so I don't even think you have to, the idea that there's been involvement with the intelligence community and our telecommunications, I think is demonstrable. I don't push back on that too much.
Okay, perfect.